The team stood at the edge of a vast, dark cavern. Beneath the Earth's surface, in a place untouched by time, they had found something extraordinary. The air felt thick, almost as though it were charged with an unseen force. Jack, the team leader, stared into the abyss below. The ground beneath his boots was solid, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the very earth around them was alive. Watching, waiting. "All right, everyone. This is it," Jack said, his voice steady but carrying an edge of excitement. He looked over at the rest of the crew: Lily, the scientist; Tom, the engineer; and Marcus, the communications expert. They were all equally in awe, but none of them had the courage to speak the thoughts that were running through their minds. They had just uncovered something that could change everything for humanity. Something so powerful, so ancient, that they had no idea how it would alter the course of history. Lily crouched down, her fingers tracing the strange markings on the walls of the cavern. "These symbols, they don't look like anything from Earth," she murmured, her voice filled with wonder. Her flashlight flickered over the walls, revealing more intricate designs, some glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. It was as though they were written in a language lost to time. And yet, somehow, they felt familiar, as if they were calling out to her. "This is beyond anything we've ever studied," Marcus added, his voice tense as he scanned the surroundings with his handheld scanner. The device beeped softly, indicating an unusual energy signature. "Whatever this place is, it's alive with energy, and it's unlike anything we've encountered." Jack turned to Tom, who was already examining the massive structure ahead. It appeared to be a monolithic, stone-like object embedded in the center of the cavern. Its surface was smooth, almost too perfect for something that had supposedly been buried for centuries, if not millennia. There were no seams, no cracks, just a solid, imposing shape that seemed to hum with an otherworldly vibration. "Do you think it's—" Jack didn't finish the sentence. They had all thought it. Could this be the artifact they had been sent to find? Could this be the key to unlocking Earth's future, or worse, its destruction? Lily stood up slowly, her eyes wide with realization. "It has to be. This is what we've been searching for. It's not just a relic. It's something more." Her voice shook slightly as she spoke, as though the gravity of the situation was finally settling in. Marcus stepped forward cautiously, his eyes scanning the object. "We need to report this to the higher-ups. This is bigger than we thought." But Jack shook his head. "No, we can't risk it. If we tell them now, they'll shut everything down. They won't understand. We need to know what this is first. Then we can make the decision." Tom, who had been silent up until this point, stepped forward and placed his hand on the surface of the object. A strange hum filled the air, reverberating through the cavern as if the artifact was responding to his touch. Tom looked up, his face pale. This is not just an object. It's a part of something much bigger. I don't know how, but I can feel it. It's connected to the very fabric of the planet." The rest of the team gathered around, their eyes fixed on the stone-like structure. Lily reached out, brushing her fingers against the glowing markings on its surface. As soon as she touched them, the entire chamber seemed to come alive. The glow intensified, bathing the group in an ethereal light. The ground beneath them began to tremble, faint at first, then growing stronger with each passing second. "We need to get out of here," Jack said urgently. "This is not safe. If this thing activates." But his words were cut off as a low, rumbling sound filled the cavern. The vibrations intensified, and the walls of the cavern shook with such force that loose rocks fell from the ceiling, crashing to the ground. The team scrambled to stay on their feet as the entire structure seemed to shudder, like it was waking from a long, deep sleep. "Tom, get away from it," Lily screamed, but Tom was already too far gone. His fingers were still pressed against the artifact, and now the energy was surging through him. He gritted his teeth, his face contorting in pain, but there was also something else, something in his eyes that spoke of an overwhelming understanding, as though the artifact was speaking directly to him, filling his mind with knowledge he had never known. Suddenly, with a blinding flash of light, the rumbling stopped. The glow from the artifact faded to a dull pulse, and the cavern grew eerily silent. Tom collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, his face pale and drenched in sweat. "What happened?" Marcus asked, rushing to Tom's side. "Are you all right?" Tom looked up at his teammates, his eyes wide, as if seeing them for the first time. It's a message," he gasped. "It's not just a weapon, it's a message. A warning." "What kind of warning?" Jack asked, kneeling beside him. It's telling us about something coming." Tom's voice was shaky, his words barely coherent. "A force. A threat. The galaxy. They know about us. And they're afraid." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying? Who knows about us?" Tom struggled to sit up. "The Galactic Council. They've been watching us. They know we found this artifact. They fear what we could do with it." The words hung in the air, thick with tension. Jack stood up, his mind racing. If they know about us, they must have seen something that tells them we're capable of something bigger than they thought, something that could change everything. Marcus quickly checked his device. The readings were off the charts. Whatever this is, it's powerful. But what could they possibly fear? Jack clenched his fists. "We need to get this back to Earth, and fast. If the Galactic Council is involved, they'll come for us. We need to understand what this artifact really is, before it's too late." As they turned to leave the cavern, a chilling thought crossed Jack's mind. If the Galactic Council was truly watching, then they weren't just concerned about the artifact. They were worried about what humanity might become. And the worst part, they were right to be afraid. Because if humanity could unlock the full potential of the artifact, nothing in the galaxy would be able to stop them. Back on Earth, the political leaders were still unaware of the discovery, but a message from the stars had already been sent, a warning that would soon reach them. The galaxy had just realized that the moment they underestimated humanity was the moment they had made their biggest mistake. The countdown had begun, and Earth's fate was now in their hands. The air felt thick and oppressive as the team descended deeper into the cave, their footsteps echoing off the walls. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, faint glows from the strange markings flickering in the dark like fireflies. Jack led the way, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Behind him, the others followed closely, their expressions a mix of awe and anxiety. The deeper they went, the more they could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful in the air. They had known they were searching for something significant, but nothing could have prepared them for what lay ahead. "We're close," Jack muttered, almost to himself, as he stepped over a jagged rock. "I can feel it." Lily, the team's lead scientist, was already scanning the walls with her portable data analyzer, but the device was giving off nothing but static. "This doesn't make sense," she murmured. "I can't pick up any clear readings. It's almost like the energy here is blocking everything." Tom, the team's engineer, adjusted his glasses, eyeing the data readout. "Yeah, I was getting the same thing. Whatever we're heading toward, it's interfering with our tech. It's like it doesn't want us to know anything about it until we get closer." They all slowed their steps as the path ahead opened into a larger cavern. The ceiling stretched high above them, and in the center of the cavern, a massive structure stood, partially embedded in the earth, its shape both alien and familiar. It was made of smooth, dark stone, but the surface was alive with strange symbols and faint glowing lines that shifted in ways that defied the laws of physics. "There it is," Jack breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. "That's it. The artifact we've been searching for." Lily stepped forward, her eyes tracing the symbols on the surface. "I've never seen anything like it. This is beyond ancient. The technology in these symbols, it's not from Earth, that's for sure." Tom squatted next to the artifact, inspecting its surface. It feels like it's pulsating, almost like it's breathing. He reached out cautiously, running his hand over the smooth surface, and immediately a low hum filled the air. The sound was almost imperceptible at first, but it soon grew louder. The cavern trembled as if responding to their presence. The group froze in place, all feeling a growing tension, the hum vibrating through their bodies. Jack's voice broke through the heavy silence. "What's happening?" "I don't know," Lily replied, her eyes wide in disbelief. "This thing, it's reacting to us. It's like it's aware we're here." Just as Lily spoke, a beam of light shot from the center of the artifact, filling the cavern with a bright, blinding glow. It was so intense that it felt as if the entire cavern had been swallowed up by it. The ground beneath their feet shifted violently, throwing them off balance. Tom stumbled, reaching out for something to hold on to, but the force of the energy was too strong. "Get back," Jack shouted, pulling Lily away from the artifact as the beam of light grew even brighter. It stretched toward the ceiling, crackling with power, and then abruptly stopped. Everything fell silent. For a moment, no one spoke. They were all too stunned by what they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, the light faded, and the cavern returned to its eerie stillness. But something had changed. The air felt charged now, buzzing with energy, and the artifact, though still dark and silent, seemed more alive. "What the hell just happened?" Marcus finally asked, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and awe. Jack stared at the artifact, his mind racing. "I don't know, but we need to figure it out. Fast." The team gathered their wits and started examining the artifact more closely. Lily tried to run another scan with her analyzer, but it still wasn't picking up any meaningful data. It's blocking every attempt to study it. "We're in the dark here." "Maybe it's waiting for something," Tom suggested, his fingers brushing against the surface once more. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it feels like it's connected to something much bigger than us." "Bigger?" Jack repeated, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "How much bigger are we talking about?" Before Tom could answer, the cavern's walls began to tremble again. This time, the vibrations felt more intense, and the ground beneath their feet cracked open in several places. Dust and small rocks fell from the ceiling, and they all looked up in alarm. "We need to get out of here," Jack said, urgency creeping into his voice. He knew they had to leave before things escalated further. The last thing they needed was for the cavern to collapse on top of them, especially with the artifact still active and seemingly unstable. But just as they were about to turn and head back toward the exit, a low, rumbling noise echoed from deep within the earth. It sounded like thunder, but it was different, darker. The hum that had filled the air earlier started again, but this time it was louder, more insistent. It came from everywhere, vibrating through the very ground. "What is that?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling with fear. Lily's face had turned pale. "It's not natural. This energy, it's not from this planet." "Could it be a signal?" Tom whispered, his voice barely audible. Jack looked around. They were too close to the artifact, too immersed in the energy that seemed to emanate from it. Whatever had just happened, whatever they had just awakened, wasn't something they could simply walk away from. They had uncovered something far more dangerous than they realized. Suddenly, the rumbling grew louder, and the entire cavern seemed to shift. The artifact trembled violently, and a deep guttural sound reverberated through the walls, like the ground itself was speaking. Jack's heart pounded as he realized that whatever was happening wasn't just a malfunction of some ancient technology. This was something deliberate. The artifact had been activated, and they had no idea what that meant. Lily glanced back toward the entrance. "We have to go, now." But as they turned to flee, the ground cracked open beneath them. The path they had taken to enter the cavern had vanished, replaced by a vast chasm. The walls of the cavern groaned under the pressure of whatever had been set into motion. "This way," Jack yelled, pulling the group toward a narrow passage on the far side of the cavern. But just as they reached the opening, the artifact emitted a final deafening pulse of energy, knocking them all to the ground. Jack struggled to stand, his mind racing. Something had changed, something they hadn't expected. They weren't just dealing with an alien artifact. They were dealing with something far more complicated, something that had a purpose far beyond what they could comprehend. And if they didn't figure it out soon, they might not have much time left. As the tremors intensified and the light from the artifact dimmed, Jack knew one thing for certain. The moment they touched that artifact, they had set off a chain of events they couldn't stop. But that was only the beginning. The galaxy would soon find out what they had uncovered on Earth, and whatever that was, it was going to change everything. The team barely had time to catch their breath before the sound of distant sirens echoed across the cavern. The ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with an energy they could no longer ignore, as though the artifact itself was calling out to something or someone. Jack motioned for everyone to move, his voice strained with urgency. "Come on, we need to get out of here now," Jack shouted. The fear that had been creeping up on them had turned into a pressing need for survival. Every instinct told him they were in danger, but from what exactly, he wasn't sure. They scrambled through the narrow passageway that had opened up just moments before the artifact had unleashed its violent pulse of energy. It was tight, but it was their only escape route. The sounds of their hurried footsteps reverberated off the jagged rock walls as they pushed forward, desperate to get back to the surface. "Is everyone okay?" Jack called out, his eyes flicking between his team. He scanned the group quickly. They all looked shaken but unharmed. It was a small relief in the growing chaos of their situation. "Yeah, we're good," Marcus said, wiping dirt from his face. His voice was ragged, but there was a sharp edge to it, the kind that came from the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "But what the hell just happened back there?" "I don't know," Jack said, his mind still reeling. "But I don't think it's over yet. That artifact, it's doing something. It's like it's trying to communicate, but it's not clear how." Lily's face was pale, her eyes haunted as she glanced back toward the cavern they'd just fled. "That energy, it wasn't like anything I've ever studied. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It was almost alive." Tom nodded, his hands trembling slightly. "We're talking about something far beyond any technology we've ever encountered. This isn't just alien. It's ancient. It's something else entirely. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't meant to be discovered." Jack stopped walking for a moment, forcing the others to halt. The weight of their discovery was starting to sink in. The artifact wasn't just some relic. It was a key, an ancient key to something far more powerful and possibly dangerous than they could have imagined. "We need to figure out what we're dealing with," Jack said, his voice firm, despite the fear gnawing at him. "We need answers, and we need them fast. If the people back at the surface don't understand what we found, we're all going to be in a lot of trouble." The tension in the air was palpable, and for a moment there was silence as the team took in the gravity of their situation. They had just unearthed something that could change the course of human history, but they had no idea how dangerous it could be. What if this artifact wasn't a gift from an ancient civilization, but a weapon? What if it was something far worse? Lily broke the silence. "We can't just walk away from this. I mean, we could, but the truth is, I don't think the galaxy is going to let us. The energy from that artifact, it's not just from this planet. It's too advanced, too foreign." As the team continued through the dark, winding tunnels, Jack's mind raced. He couldn't shake the thought of the Galactic Council. He had read about them in passing, mostly in science fiction novels and obscure research articles. But now, after the way the artifact had reacted to them, he was starting to wonder if all the conspiracy theories about extraterrestrial organizations were true. What if the Galactic Council wasn't just some made-up story? What if they had been watching Earth all along? Suddenly, Tom stopped dead in his tracks. "Wait, something's wrong." Jack turned, his heart pounding. "What is it?" Tom was staring at his scanner, eyes wide with disbelief. The readings, they're off the charts. The artifact, it's not just sending out energy anymore. It's receiving something. What do you mean, receiving something? Marcus asked, his voice low, a nervous edge creeping in. I mean, it's interacting with something outside of Earth. A signal. A transmission. Tom looked up, meeting Jack's eyes. And it's coming from the stars. Jack's stomach dropped. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. The Galactic Council, whoever they were, had known about Earth's existence far longer than they had assumed. But why now? Why had they allowed Earth to reach this point, only to respond now with what seemed like a response to an alien artifact buried beneath the planet? How far is the signal coming from? Jack asked, his voice a little more urgent now. Tom's fingers danced over the device, adjusting the frequency. It's not clear, but I'm getting a trace of the signal from the outer edge of the system. It's faint, but it's definitely there. Whoever, or whatever, is sending this message, they're out there. And they know about the artifact. That's not good, Lily whispered, her eyes wide. That means we're not just dealing with an artifact. We're dealing with something much bigger. Suddenly, the tunnel ahead of them began to shake again, much more violently this time. The ground trembled, and loose rocks tumbled from the ceiling. It wasn't just the tremors of an unstable cavern. It felt as though the Earth itself was reacting to something. The artifact, Jack said, his voice tight with dread. It's trying to tell us something. Tom's face went pale. I think it's more than that. I think it's calling them. It's calling the ones who sent the signal. The rumbling intensified, and in that moment, Jack understood the depth of their situation. The artifact wasn't just some forgotten relic. It was a beacon, one that had been activated by their presence. They weren't alone in this discovery. Whatever race or races had been watching Earth had made their move. They knew humanity had found the key, and now they were on their way to reclaim it. What do we do now? Marcus asked, panic creeping into his voice. We keep moving, Jack said. We need to get back to the surface, get the information to command, and prepare for whatever's coming. And if the Galactic Council is out there, we better be ready for them. Because this is bigger than all of us. As they reached the exit of the cavern and the light of day spilled into the tunnel, Jack could feel the weight of what they had just unleashed. The artifact, the signal, the incoming forces, it was all happening so quickly, and they were caught right in the middle of it. Earth had just made a choice, and whether they realized it or not, they had just set the course for the future of humanity, one that would involve not only the fate of the planet, but the fate of the entire galaxy. As Jack and the team emerged from the underground labyrinth, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer just explorers. They were the center of something much bigger. And somewhere, out in the vast expanse of space, the ones who had been watching were already making their move. The sky above Earth was clear, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The moment they stepped into the sunlight, the world seemed different, heavier, as if the weight of the discovery they had made was pressing down on him with every passing second. The surface team had already started to make their way toward the vehicles, but Jack was still frozen, staring at the horizon, a sense of unease creeping up on him. Behind him, his team was catching up, moving quickly, but there was a tension in the air. Tom and Lily exchanged worried glances as they hurried to keep pace. The artifact's energy readings were still fresh in their minds. There was no turning back from what they had uncovered deep beneath the Earth's surface. They had awakened something, and now it was clear. Whatever that was, it wasn't meant to be disturbed. Jack, Marcus's voice broke through his thoughts. We've got to move. It's not safe here. He turned to see Marcus standing a few feet away, the concern on his face obvious. There was no denying the danger they were in. But Jack couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in his chest. We can't just leave it like this, Jack replied, his voice tight. We need to tell command. We need to know what this is, what it's really doing. Lily spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. Jack, I don't think Command is going to understand. Hell, we barely do. And that signal, the one Tom picked up, it's not just coming from within our system, it's coming from outside. We're talking about a civilization that's light years away from us. What if they're already on their way? The thought hit Jack harder than he wanted to admit. He had spent years studying space exploration, reading about the theoretical possibilities of first contact, but this was different. They weren't talking about theoretical anymore. They were talking about a reality that was unfolding right before their eyes. The artifact they had discovered wasn't just a relic of an ancient race. It was a communication device, a message, a beacon for something much bigger. Are we sure? Jack asked, his voice low. Tom nodded grimly, still fiddling with his device. There's no doubt. I've tried to recalibrate, scan for interference, but this signal is coming in loud and clear now. And from the looks of it, they've detected us. The wind had picked up, whistling through the trees, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Jack's mind raced. The Galactic Council, the threat looming over them. It all started to feel too real too quickly. The whole world had no idea what was coming. They hadn't even begun to process the enormity of their discovery. The artifact wasn't just some lost piece of history. It was the key to a future they weren't ready for. And worse, it was a beacon for forces that had been watching Earth for a long time. We need to move, Jack repeated, more forcefully this time. We need to get to the command center. This isn't something we can hide anymore. They piled into the vehicles, the hum of the engines providing a brief moment of respite. The team was silent, their thoughts consumed by the same questions that Jack couldn't stop asking himself. Who was out there? What did they want? And most terrifying of all, what would happen when they arrived? The drive to the command center took hours, but it felt like a lifetime. Jack couldn't focus on anything other than the sense of impending doom that seemed to settle deeper with every passing minute. They had to warn the world, but what if the governments, the people in power, didn't understand the magnitude of the threat? What if they panicked? The world wasn't ready for this. Humanity wasn't ready for this. By the time they reached the command center, the team had grown quiet, each person lost in their own thoughts. As they entered the building, the hum of their vehicles faded, and the sterile, familiar environment of the command center seemed jarring against the overwhelming chaos of the moment. Jack, the commanding officer, Colonel Harris, met them just inside the door. His eyes were sharp and his expression serious, but Jack could see the worry behind his demeanor. "We've been tracking the signal," Harris said without preamble. "It's real. Whatever you found down there, it's not just some ancient artifact. This is something much more dangerous." Jack nodded gravely. He had no time to explain the intricacies of what they had discovered. The truth of it was clear now. Humanity had made contact, but not in the way anyone expected. We need to act fast. The artifact's activation, it wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Lily spoke up, her voice tight. The artifact is a signal. It's calling something from outside our system. And that something, whatever it is, has been watching us. The signal Tom picked up. It's a message. They know we found the artifact. Harris's brow furrowed. Who knows? Who are we dealing with here? Someone with power, Jack replied. Someone who's been keeping an eye on us for longer than we've known. And now, they're on their way. For a moment, the room was silent. Colonel Harris's gaze hardened, as if he were processing the enormity of what they were saying. Then, slowly, he nodded. Then we're not wasting any more time. Get your team in the briefing room. We need to figure out what this means for us, and what we need to do next. The group followed Harris into the briefing room, where they were immediately surrounded by officers and strategists. The room was filled with maps of the world, satellites tracking the signal, and an overwhelming sense of urgency. "Okay, people," Harris started, his voice steady despite the tension. "We've got one shot at this. We don't know exactly what we're dealing with, But we know this. The signal we've been tracking is not from Earth. It's coming from the outer edge of the galaxy, and it's getting stronger. That means whoever, or whatever, has been waiting for us to make contact is almost here. Jack's mind was racing. They had just stumbled upon the very thing that could change everything for humanity, and not in the way they had hoped. This wasn't about peace or exploration. It wasn't about making first contact. The message they had uncovered was a warning, and they were about to find out just how dangerous their curiosity had been. "We need to be prepared for whatever comes next," Jack said, his voice unwavering. "We don't know if we're dealing with allies or enemies, but the longer we wait, the less time we have to figure it out." The strategists were already working, communicating with other agencies across the globe. It felt like the weight of the world was bearing down on them. There was no going back now. Outside the windows, the sky seemed peaceful, serene, but Jack knew better. The storm was coming, and they were right in its path. The Galactic Council, or whoever else was watching them, was almost here. And once they arrived, Earth would never be the same. The air in the briefing room was thick with tension as Colonel Harris paced back and forth, his fingers tapping anxiously on the table. The team stood nearby, exchanging glances, each of them feeling the weight of the discovery they had unearthed. Jack could sense the urgency growing in the room, but he couldn't shake the nagging thought that whatever was coming, whatever had been triggered by their actions, was far beyond their understanding. "We need to stop thinking small," Harris said, his voice low and serious. "This isn't just about an alien artifact anymore. The signal is no longer just an anomaly. It's a call to action. We've woken something up, and it's not going to wait." Jack stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, his mind racing. He had always thought of first contact as some grand, noble moment. Humanity would join the stars, discover new civilizations, and take its rightful place in the cosmos. But this was something different. This was a warning, a challenge, and Jack wasn't sure they were ready for it. "We've confirmed that the signal is coming from outside the solar system," Harris continued. "The satellites are tracking it. It's not just a beacon, it's a message, and we need to know what it says before it's too late." Lily, standing next to Jack, glanced at him before turning her attention back to the screen. "The artifact itself seems to be the key. If we can understand how it works, maybe we can decipher the message it's trying to send." Tom, who had been quiet until now, spoke up, his voice hoarse from the stress of the past few hours. "We've already tried to study it. The artifact is blocking all of our readings. It's almost like it's trying to hide its true nature from us, or worse, like it's trying to keep us from understanding it before it's too late." Jack nodded grimly. They had tried everything to break through the energy field surrounding the artifact, but it remained stubbornly silent, unwilling to give up its secrets. "We can't afford to waste time," Harris said, his voice now sharp with command. "We need to get to the heart of this. If something is coming, something alien, we need to be ready." Jack's eyes narrowed as he looked around at his team. The reality of their situation was setting in. They weren't just dealing with an artifact or an alien civilization. They were facing a galactic power that had been watching Earth for much longer than they'd realized. "We're dealing with something far older, far more powerful than anything we've ever encountered," Jack said, his voice steady despite the gnawing fear in his chest. "And whatever it is, it's coming fast. If we don't act, it could be the end of us before we even understand what's happening." Harris turned toward the large display, which showed a map of the Earth and the path the signal was taking. It was clear now. The signal wasn't just moving through space. It was homing in on their location, the coordinates of the artifact. And that meant one thing. The force they had awakened was coming for it. "How much time do we have?" Lily asked, her voice tight with anxiety. Harris hesitated, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He glanced at the data, then looked back at the team, his face hardening. "At best guess, a matter of days, maybe less. The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Days. They had days to figure out what the artifact was, what it had triggered, and how to stop whatever was heading toward them. "We need to prepare for all possibilities," Jack said, his voice calm, though inside, his thoughts were chaotic. "We need to figure out if this is an invasion, a rescue mission, or something else entirely. If we have any chance of surviving this, we need to know what's coming." Tom pulled out his portable scanner and began typing frantically. "We've been trying to reverse engineer the artifact, but it's not easy. The data it's transmitting is beyond our current technology. But I think we've got one more shot." Jack turned to him. "What do you mean? What can we do?" "I think the artifact has a fail-safe," Tom explained, not looking up from the device in his hands. "It's been sending out a steady pulse of energy, almost like a countdown. If we can tap into it, maybe we can trigger a response from it, force it to give up the information we need." Lily's eyes widened. "You think you can hack into it?" Tom shot her a glance. "I don't know about hacking, but I think we can trigger a sequence, if we're lucky." Jack's mind raced. Time was running out, and every second they spent talking was a second closer to facing the unknown. "Do it," he said, his voice firm. "Whatever it takes. We can't sit here and wait. We need answers now." Tom nodded and began typing faster, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Okay. Here goes nothing." The room was silent except for the rhythmic tapping of Tom's fingers on the screen. Jack could feel the weight of the moment settling over him. Every keystroke was one step closer to either unlocking the truth or unleashing something far worse. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched Tom work, the tension unbearable. Then the screen flickered. For a moment, Jack thought the system had crashed, but the display came back to life, and the familiar pulse from the artifact appeared on the screen. It was more pronounced now, stronger, as if it was reacting to Tom's input. "That's it," Tom said, his voice a mix of triumph and disbelief. "I've triggered it. The artifact is responding." Lily stepped forward, her eyes wide. "What does it mean? What is it saying?" Tom's fingers danced across the keyboard, adjusting the parameters. The energy pulse from the artifact began to stabilize, and lines of strange symbols appeared on the screen. It was as if the artifact was communicating directly with them. "It's a code," Tom said, eyes scanning the symbols rapidly. "It's not just a message, it's a warning. A countdown." "A countdown to what?" Jack asked, his voice tight with anticipation. Tom swallowed hard. "A countdown to the arrival of whoever's behind the signal. It's not just a message. They're coming. The artifact isn't a beacon anymore. It's a way for them to track us. We've activated it, and now they know we're here." Harris, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "How long do we have?" Tom's hands were shaking as he read the data. "It's hard to say. The numbers are inconsistent, but we have less than 48 hours before they arrive." Jack's heart sank. 48 hours. That's it. The room grew heavy with the realization of just how little time they had left. Earth was about to face something beyond human comprehension, something far more advanced and far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. They had triggered the countdown, and now, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. "We need to get the word out," Jack said, his voice steady despite the dread gnawing at him. "We need to prepare the world for what's coming, and we need to be ready." The room went quiet as everyone absorbed the magnitude of the situation. It wasn't just about the artifact anymore. It wasn't about first contact. It was about survival. And Jack knew one thing for certain. The next 48 hours would decide everything.